Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us today in this new series called Community Voice by Moonbeam. So, this is a space that we're going to dedicate. We're going to do it like many times in a month, or like depending on like what proposals we have up for discussion, or like what new things are there to discuss with the community. So, this space, as the name says, Community Voice, is a space for the community to like share their thoughts, feedback, questions, etc. for any new update or proposal that is up that will impact any of the networks, Moonbeam or Moonriver, or the ecosystem or the community in general. Moonbeam is a network that is it's decentralized. It's like the community has a part of it, so like a way of getting involved with key decisions of the network. It's a lot like by participating in governance. So that's why we're here. So today, our first topic for the first session ever that we're doing for this series is going to be about the dynamic fees mechanism. That is a mechanism that is being proposed right now for Moonbeam. This is currently up for vote in the community forum. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as well today. But today with me is Jan. Jan is head of product in PureStake. PureStake is a development team for Moonbeam. So he's going to explain today more about the dynamic fees mechanism. If anyone has any question during that presentation, please feel free to drop your questions using the chat or using the ask a question voice box, below. So Jan, thank you so much for being with us and welcome to our new series.
Thank you, Cassie, and hello everyone. So I will just share my screen so we'll be able to see the nice presentation we did.
Absolutely. Let me stop sharing mine. And the stage is yours.
Thank you. So as Cathy mentioned, this one is one of the series. So the first proposal that we submitted into this community forum is about a dynamic fee, and we would like to basically update how it has been done. Steven is one of the developers at PureStake, and he spent a good amount of time researching and analyzing how fees are working in Moonbeam, and this is why he proposed this kind of updates. So this proposal is pretty simple in a sense, because it's focusing on basically making sure that we are following this EIP 1559 updates and make sure that basically when people are putting fees in order to transact on the network, those fees are not too cheap or too expensive. But before we go into this, which is kind of a highly technical topic, I will just maybe take the opportunity to share this presentation with you, which is also, I would say, a deep dive into how fees are working in Moonbeam. So the block prediction mechanism in Moonbeam is a bit special because Moonbeam is a network, a blockchain, and if we see this network as a company, what we are selling, in a sense, is block space. And block space is something that is with high quality in Moonbeam networks because we provide this kind of EVM compatibility. So basically, users are able to profit from the DeFi ecosystem, NFT interactions, and many other things. But this kind of things can be done also in a secure and fast way compared to other solutions that we can find out there. But this value, this block space is limited, it's scarce. Bounded, if you want. So basically, what we propose is to have 15 million gas units for each block that user can use in order to transact. So this is the point number one. Point number two is in order to do that as a company, we have to incentivize block producers, what we call collators, to fill blocks with transactions that have been submitted by token holders. And to do that, collators need to provide computation power, storage, but also to be connected to the networks. And it has a cost. So it has a cost for them. So this is why the blockchain, as a company again, is putting some money to pay block producer to perform their job. So this is kind of an expense from the blockchain point of view. Now, token holders are able to submit transactions. And this transaction will be staying in the mempool, which is kind of a queue or waiting queue, in order to be taken by those block producers and be included into the block. And to do that, they have to pay a fee at market price. And here I'm talking about the primary market, which is the real cost of the transaction. So if we take just this example to picture this process, basically token holders will be sending transactions to the mempool, but those transactions will not be organized. So when a collector will come, they will be asking themselves which transactions they need to take first in order to fill this block, those 15 million units of gas. So to do that, basically, there is a system that has been put in place initially, what we call the fee market. Basically, this is kind of a first price auction system, which allows block producers, collectors in this case, to order the transaction based on the priority. And the priority is based on the gas price. So the higher the gas price you put on your transaction, the more likely you are to be taken in the next block. So here in this example, before we had the purple transaction that was at the bottom, but now that we are ordering them by gas price, the purple transaction is the first one to be likely to be taken by the collector. So now the collector will take as many transactions as it can in order to fill those 15 million gas units for the block. And when it's full, it will just package them and put them into a block. So now the mempool size is a bit decreasing and other transactions can come in. So this approach is good, and it was in place for several years in the Ethereum mainnet. But now it has some issues. So let's say Alice on the left-hand side is willing to put a transaction in the mempool, and she initially put a 50 GUE gas price. So her transaction is ranked third or fourth, in fact, on this mempool. And after, I would say, 30 minutes of time, she's coming back and she's just wondering why her transaction has not been taken into a block. And the reason for that is because more transactions have been put in the mempool, and those transactions just outbid her transaction. So you can see that here there is a transaction with 80 GUE, another with 90 GUE, and so on and so forth. And basically, her transaction is kind of stuck there until those transactions are taken first, which leads to something that we can call the gas war. So this is some event that we saw on the Ethereum network, where people were trying to outbid each other in order to be taken first, which leads to I would say a quite high increase in the gas price. So it was very, very hard or expensive to be taken for the next block. So it's not very good in terms of user experience. Then came this EIP 1559, which introduced this notion of feedback loop, which is basically a way for the network to manage itself the gas price, in fact. So instead of having only the gas price for the user point of view, because before Alice was just putting 50 GUE as a gas price, now there is 3 parameters that have been introduced. The first one is the base fee, and this base fee is entirely managed by the network. So basically, the network will monitor the fill ratio to know what is the percentage of the previous block that had been filled, and based on that, you will be able to adjust the base fee. The priority fee, also known as the tip, is a way for users to incentivize collectors or block producers to take their transaction first still, but you can also specify a max fee. So how much you are willing to pay at maximum. Before you had the static value 50 GUE, and now you can specify a upper bound limit, meaning that you can also pay less than that. So you can pay less if potentially the network is less congestion than it was before. And basically now it's costing way less to be included into the next block. So instead of paying a fixed price, you will be able to pay a bit less. So just to picture it out on Ethereum, how it's working, and this is again a simplification of the process. Basically, the network will just look at the last committed block and see how fill it was. You look at the fill ratio. If it was less than 50%, then it will decrease the base fee. If it is 50%, then it will maintain the base fee. And if it is higher than 50%, it will increase the base fee in order to make the inclusion of new transaction more expensive. So it will be able to pilot basically the cost of the block space that it is managed. Why is it 50%? Is because this is the logic on the Ethereum mainnet that target 50% block fill ratio. So what it brings is something that is a bit more transparent. Basically, it is automatically managed by the network, and you can directly see it on chain. It is also more efficient. You can basically match the supply and demand for block space, and it is done directly by the network, and it is more predictable. Just to picture it out, the predictability is very important because back in time, it was not uncommon to see some transaction that have been submitted with 2 GUE, and right after, some transactions submitted with 200 GUE. So the volatility of the fee was quite high. And thanks to this part, it's a way to make it a bit more stable. So now what about Moonbeam? And what do we propose? So there's 2 things to know about Moonbeam that will also explain the choice that we are proposing. The first one is we have dual type transactions. So we can submit transaction from MetaMask to the mempool or submit transaction from the substrate side to the mempool. And those 2 types have different ways to compute how much fee the user should put. And the second thing is, as Moonbeam is a parachain, it is connected to Polkadot relay chain, and it has to obey to some rules. One of them is to make sure that the blocks that we submit for verification to the validators on Polkadot, those blocks should not be too big in order to make sure that the verification is still done within a certain amount of time. So we cannot increase the box size by a lot because it will consume more time for the validation process. So in order for you to understand a bit more this change, I just, with the help of Steven, put them into this table where basically we can see the different parameters, what it does, what is the current state, what we propose, and the comparison with Ethereum. So basically, the block target is the percentage of block space that we are targeting. So we would like to have something like 25% of block space consumed, used per block. And this value will not change from what is done today already. As an element of comparison on the Ethereum, this is 50%. The second thing is the block size. This is what I mentioned before, which is the amount of gas that can be into a block. It was 50 million. It is currently 50 million. We do not plan to change it. And for the Ethereum, just for you to see it, basically it is a dynamic value now that can go from 15 to 30 million based on how much the network is used. There is also the fee management. So this is specific to Moonbeam and Moonriver. So this one will not change. All the fees that are taken, 80% of it will be burned and 20% will go to treasury. For the Ethereum part, the base fee is fully burned and the tip is rewarded to the block producer. The other part is the Ethereum base fee, so the values that can be controlled by the network, and this is the part that we propose to change. Currently, this is a static value of 1 GUE, and what we like to do is to make it following the logics that has been implemented in the Polkadot transaction payment that is used for substrate-based transactions. So going back to this value, basically today, this value is mostly a default value. And it will slowly drift towards 0 over time. And the issue there is it's very, very slow to react to external conditions. And what we propose to do is to tune it a bit more, because now we have more data to know what are the correct value we would like to put, and to have an algorithm, that is more quick to react to those events. The last part is a multiplayer tunings. So basically, how fast it can go up or down. The current state is it will at the maximum go up 23% and go down 23% within a day. And what we propose to have is to be able to double the value or half the value within an hour. So it will be very fast to react to block congestion. So as an example, just for you to understand a bit more what would be the impact. So I took an example of a simple balance transfer. So this balance transfer has been designed to only cost 21,000 gas. This is the same thing for Ethereum also. And basically, those 21,000 gas, if we have a fill ratio of 25% on the previous block, it will be the same. It will still be 21,000. So this is what you can see here. But if you have 50% of fill ratio, then it will slowly cost more. It will go to 21,021. And if you add 100% fill ratio, it will be more expensive also. And basically, you can see on the other lines that what will happen if all the blocks are consecutively filled with 25% or 50% or 100%, and what is the impact of this new algorithm on the cost. So basically, this proposal goal is to make it safer because we are also putting some upper and lower boundaries to make sure that we don't end up with transactions that are costing nothing, so they are free. Because as I mentioned at the beginning, you can see the blockchain as a company. And I like this example because it's more easy to understand the flow of incentives. And basically, if transactions are cheap or costing nothing, basically we are just paying for something that will not be paid for from the user to transact on the network, which is not sustainable. Or to avoid congestions, to make sure that basically user can still transact, and basically we do not end up with having fees that are prohibitively high. Second thing is to be more dynamic, to make sure that we can react to events like the fill ratio jumping from 25% to 100 or going down to 10%, and to be able to adjust and not have this kind of inertia that you have today. And also, the third point that is quite important also is to make an effort to be consistent or have substrate-based fee and Ethereum-based fees more aligned. So they should be working together, and there should be no incentive to do a substrate-based transaction over the Ethereum transaction or the other way around. Okay, so I just finished with kind of the deep dive on how it's working. I hope it was a bit more clear what we plan to do, and I will continue from this slide. So if you go to the forum, you will be able to see the post of Steven, and he's explaining in details how it has been done. You can also access the GitHub PR, and now thanks to this explanation, I hope you will be able to understand it a bit more clearly and what is at stake. So this forum has been put online, and the main goal of this forum is to bring the community together. We want to bring the community together around different topics in order to make the network evolve according to what the community wants. This is very important because we see the decentralization as an asset. And by decentralization, we do not mean something that is only technical, like making sure that we have a decentralized set of collators or we're able to have a good distribution of the tokens. Here we are talking about the decision-making process, how we upgrade the chain, what is the different palettes, tools, features that we would like to roll out. And the goal is to have this place where you will be able, as a community member, to post something, to see what's happening, and to react. So here on this screen, you can see that on the top right, there is two links, one called request and the other one called governance. So if you click on governance, you can go to Polka Assembly, which is a tool that we are using today to allow token holders to vote on democracy proposals. And the request is for you to have a sneak peek on basically the community requests that have been raised in the past and to see the status of those requests. So if you did not jump already on this forum, I just invite you to do so. You just need to have your Discord login and to be already connected to the Moonbeam Discord space in order to be able to access it. Then there is this interim treasury program that had been put there. So we are also using this forum to trigger discussion around that. And the process is pretty simple. People that are willing to get funds from the treasury, because as we discussed before, 80% of it is burned and 20% goes to treasury. So there are some funds that are always being gathered in the treasury account, and those funds are here to make sure that we are sponsoring or funding interesting projects to grow the network. So if a project is willing to do so, they will have to go to the forum, put a post there, ask for discussion and feedbacks, and then there will be a voting session by the Treasury Council that will be done. And if it is approved, then the funds will be paid directly to the people that were willing to get funded. If you want to learn more, either on the community forum or to have more information about how Moonbeam is working, feel free to just click on those links here. There is a lot of documentation, so you will be able to understand a lot of things on how Moonbeam is working. There is very good content there. So if you have any questions, yeah, this is the time, and we'll try to ask them.
Thank you so much for a great presentation, Jan. So yeah, I see one question here, and it says, with the current 23% up and down limit, will the network simply be slowing down if it reach max throughput, as opposed to increasing the fee but allowing faster processing of transaction based on priority?
Yeah. So basically today the state is a bit, I would say, is not dynamic. So there will be an issue at some point if we hit a long chain of consecutive blocks that are empty or a long chain of consecutive blocks that are filled. Because it will just lead us to say, okay, now the transactions are quite cheap, so even super cheap, or they are prohibitively high, so no one is able to do that. And if we want to react to this part, then it will be very hard because we'll have to wait a significant number of consecutive blocks in order to go down or go up again. So this is the thing that we want to change and to make it more dynamic or reactive.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for answering that. So I don't see any other questions, but I actually want to do a quick recap with you, Jan, of what you talk, so that community get a final message for the main highlighting points that I would like to take. So you were talking about why these proposals are open for discussion for the community. So a question that we got for community members in the past is why are we discussing this type of proposals in the forum instead of implementing in them right away? You mentioned about the community feedback. Can you explain more the reason of why the community forum exists?
Yeah, for sure. So yes, we can. This is how it was done at the beginning. So the Moonbeam network was quite new, and definitely we needed to put more features there. But now we are going to a path where the network is more mature, and we want to engage more and more community around this. So now instead of just implementing right away the features, we will ask first feedback from the community, and anyone can also submit some proposals to be implemented, and we will have a look at that, see if it is fitting basically the community sentiment. And based on that, we'll be able to either implement it or just review the GitHub PRs and then propose it to update the runtime.
Fantastic. Agree with that. I agree that like the forum is definitely a place where the community can give feedback. So these proposals can like one have a period where like we listen to the community or the proposer listens to the community and like can make the proposal better if there are like any changes needed before it goes to the voting stage. So it's just the first step to like have the community involved. So my next question, you explain a lot about like dynamic fees. You like show amazing tables that I think like help a lot like to understand really what the change will be. But in simple terms, what would you say that are like the main benefits that the dynamic phase mechanism are bringing to the network?
Yeah, so there are multiple benefits. Sorry. One of them being that we will be able to make the network a bit more sensitive. So I guess that this part is really critical because we usually see the blockchain as a monolithic thing that is immutable and do not react. And here we are allowing the networks to be able to react to an event that is directly impacting user experience, which is basically how feel the block space is. We saw the same thing for the difficulty when basically you want to mine on Bitcoin, for instance, where there is this difficulty parameter that is moving over time to make the difficulty or the mining process a bit more complex or not in order to match a static amount of time. So every 10 minutes there is a block. So this is kind of similar to this part to make sure that now blockchain has highs and highs, and we'll be able to see what's happening in order to adjust this value. So this is the first thing that I really feel is quite important to have in mind. There is also another point that will make sense to also bear is today, if we leave it like that, then we can end up in a situation where transactions are very cheap. And this is not something that we would like to have because it means that basically we are just wasting resources or wasting funds because we are paying collectors to do a work, a very important work. But basically, in the input side, we do not receive anything. And this is something that we do not want as a network to face. And I guess that dynamic fee is a good way to solve that, definitely. And the last thing is we also want to align how transactions are done. Yeah, the fees that you pay for transactions. So today there is an inconsistency between substrate-based fee and Ethereum-based fee. So this is not something that is good because it creates this incentive to either send transaction via the substrate path, or to do it via the Ethereum path. It makes little to no sense to have two different ways to treat the type of transactions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ian, for explaining. So we have come to like the end of this presentation. Thank you so much, Ian, for joining us today and like preparing this presentation for the community to know more about dynamic fees. Thank you so much for everybody who joined here in Crowdcast and also on the Twitter broadcast that we have. If you are interested in learning more about the proposal, reading the whole proposal, and also share feedback, thoughts, etc., you can go. So there's a button here on Crowdcast where you can like go straight to the community forum. As Jan said, like you can see the proposal if you are not logged in, but like to interact with the proposal, which means like sharing feedback or sharing any comments, you need to log in by connecting with Discord and being part of the Moonbeam Discord server. And if you have any questions, our team is here at your disposal so for like helping you for anything you need. So thank you, Jan. I don't know if you have any final messages for that community.
No, it's all fine. And thank you for listening.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, and have a great weekend. Well, week, rest of your week. Thank you. Bye.